Good evening and welcome to the Franchise Tag Podcast with me, your host, Freddie Hall. On a Monday, Sky will be back with us very shortly, very soon, and there'll be all three of us reviewing the Monday games and talking about Monday Night Football as well. As ever, our stalwart of a man here every week for the Franchise Tag, doing loads of stuff, lots of stuff. Betting. How'd the betting go this weekend?
You see, I had a winner.
Yeah?
Unbelievable. Yes. So we did the F Tag 5. Andrew picks his 5. We did it. It lost purely because the Vikings Bears, we had -3.5 for the Vikings. But due to the fact that Adam is an idiot, he forgot to put it on until an hour before the game, and the line had changed to -3. So it pushed, and I got a winner. And it was even better because it meant Andrew lost. It's great. So, it's superb. Happy days.
It's a win-win on all platforms from the looks of it. Crazy weekend of NFL. Lots of nutty scores. Got obviously 3 games to talk about, like we usually do, and then talking about the Monday Night Football game tonight, which is the Baltimore Ravens heading to the Los Angeles Chargers. A bit of a back-to-back game weekend for the LA to SoFi Stadium, and they hosted last night. The Eagles, the LA Rams did, and then they're doing the Chargers tonight. So, yeah, lots going on. And the scores over the weekend, we had on the Thursday night, Friday morning game, my Pittsburgh Steelers, after going on about how great they were on the Tuesday show, lost to the Cleveland Browns 24-19. The Kansas City Chiefs ran very close with 30-27 against the Carolina Panthers. We had a Lions blowout. Well, I'll call it a blowout. I think it's a blowout. 24-6 against the Indianapolis Colts. The Miami Dolphins hosted the New England Patriots in an AFC East Division rivalry, beating them 34-15. But the first game we're talking about tonight is the Dallas Cowboys against the Washington Commanders, a 34-26 scoreline for the Cowboys, beating the Commanders in their home field. It was a very, very quiet very quiet whole game until the fourth quarter. Nothing really overly all that happened. But Dallas, leading the line with Cooper Rush, went on to beat Jaden Daniels. And it seems to be, we're going to talk about the Commanders tomorrow as well. But, I think it's important to talk about this game as well, because it was an upset with how much of a decline that Dallas has been in. And, it seems like it could have actually gone either way in the fourth.
Yeah, it was pretty mental once we reached the last quarter. It was 3-3 at half time. That's how crazy it was, and not a lot had happened. But Cooper Rush kind of did an okay job. He didn't look too bad. 247 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. It was all very, very simple. There wasn't anything amazing that he had to do, and he just looked pretty solid doing it. And we've seen before, haven't we, with him, that he's capable of winning games. And I'm not saying that he was a huge, he was solid, he was okay, but there were obviously other factors to the win. But he looked all right. I thought that the Cowboys' run game looked okay. It wasn't fantastic, but Rico Dowdle did well. He had 86 yards, so he looked all right. And you're not going to get anything amazing from the receiving guys, because obviously you're only going to get so much from Cooper Rush. But the defense, I know they gave up 26 points in this game, but the defense just looked a lot better and a lot more attacking compared to what they had been before. And it kind of goes to show that there may well be a little bit of juice still left in them for this season, because I think we all felt with the Cowboys that it was it was all done, and I still think it's going to be a struggle to do anything significant, but they might cause a couple of upsets in games and have the potential to win maybe 1 or 2 more. When it comes to the Commanders, I think they seem to be plateauing out a little bit. And I feel like Jaden Daniels I felt he was better in this game than he had been in the last couple, but even still, it just kind of felt like not to the heights that he was at the very beginning of the season. And so they struggled a little bit with that, and giving up 34 points to this Cowboys team is a concern for them, and they may end up missing out on the playoffs or just kind of they're hovering around it at the moment. But yeah, I thought it was good game, exciting game in the last quarter. But you had to get to the fourth quarter before anything exciting happened.
Seemed that way for a lot of the games over the weekend.
Yeah.
Definitely seemed that way. I mean, yeah, I like I said, I was heavily impressed with Rico Dowdle. He's really now taking that mantle. We've been pounding the drum all season that this Cowboys run game is just, I mean, on this show and on the Tuesday show as well, that this, I'm sure they've said it on the college show as well about a certain Ashton Johnson in the college and how much he would probably suit the Dallas Cowboys as well. But Rico Dowdle seems to really be taking on a mantle. I mean, it's not their highest rushing yards of this season. That came against Atlanta in week 9. But it's been up there. I mean, for every game that they've sort of gone 100, they've gone around 50. So, there's a lot of inconsistency there. And I mean, this is an anomaly for me with the Cowboys. I don't think it suddenly sparks a bit of a run where maybe they get into the NFC side of things in the wild card out of nowhere. I think this is maybe more the Commanders losing than the Cowboys winning. But you can't take it away from them. And Cooper Rush, no interceptions, 2 touchdowns, pretty good completion to attempt percentages. 247 yards for once, was complemented with a decent run game. Spread the ball about as well. I mean, I know it was 12 targets for Lamb in the end, and Shoemaker only 4, Spanford only 2, Brooks only 3, Tolbert only 4, but. Lamb didn't really do much of his yardage. This is the problem we've said about the Cowboys is, when it starts to circulate all the way around CD Lamb, teams are going to work that out. And I mean, maybe that's also happening to the Commanders now as well, Adam, is that, teams are starting to work them out. The sort of the shine is off of them a little bit. And that, there's more film now. There's more film on how to go against this Washington team, and teams are learning, right?
Yeah, I think you see that, don't you? It's one of them things that you see quite commonly happen to a few teams by the time you reach this sort of part of the season, that there is a lot more tape on Jaden Daniels and this offense and how they want to play. I felt like their run game in this particular game, although they got 145 yards combined, they didn't really, they weren't amazing. I felt like Eckler struggled a little bit in the run game. Didn't really get involved much in the passing game as well. Jaden Daniels kind of took a bit more control of the run game, which he hasn't in the last few games. And so it goes to show that, maybe people are starting to work that out a little bit more. Brian Robinson, he went out for a little bit and came back in again, but he wasn't involved as much. And it just kind of all felt a little bit like the running backs, they struggle to get that going. And I think in any way, whether you struggle with the pass or the run, whichever way struggles, the whole thing struggles. And so I think that it might be a case of people are working them out a little bit. I think they're currently the number 7 seed if it was the playoffs this week, like going into it this week. So they've got some teams around them. They've got the Cardinals, they've got the Buccaneers, the Rams, that are only like 1 or 2 wins away from them. These are some good teams that if they can put a run together at this very, late stage, then they will get in. And it just kind of feels a little bit like, I'm not sure if the Commanders are going to be able to get it back again, because it's like once you start losing games and you start struggling a bit more, it does become difficult to get back going.
And when you look on the Cowboys side of it, I mean, they've got the Giants, the Bengals are at the Panthers, Buccaneers at the Eagles, and the Commanders to close out the season. That's why my hesitation is that this is some spark of some sort of run. I think they'll probably beat the Giants. I think the Bengals will be a very interesting game. I think the Panthers will be a really interesting game as well now with them. I mean, the only nail-on win for me is probably the Giants, and it's just because I think CeeDee Lamb's really good. Like, I don't think... and also there's massive problems in New York at the minute, and so and then to be that would be on the season 5 and 7 in that next game. I don't really see the wins. The only positive for them is they don't have to go anywhere really. They've got of the last 2, 4, 6, 4 of them are at home. You know,
Yeah,
they go to the
the only
Eagles
thing
in December, which is outdoor. That's going to be
yeah.
maybe, but then the Panthers, it's cold but not crazy. Like that could be one of the ways. But then again, is the AT&T Stadium known as a fortress? Really, I don't think it is, to be honest.
Well, not this season. Their home form has been appalling, hasn't it? It's been a real struggle because they can't afford a curtain. You see, so that's the issue that they've got there. So it's like until they get that sorted, they're never going to win at home. It sounds like. So yeah, I mean,
in fact, they haven't won at home at all
no,
this season. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I do agree that obviously, like that, I think they're probably too far away. Really, I mean, they're 4-7. The Commanders are 7-5 after this game. It's like it's going to be very, very difficult to be able to get enough wins here. And yes, the Giants are an absolute mess at the moment, so they will probably win that game. But once you get past that one, playing the Eagles, I mean, you saw how the Eagles played last night. It's going to be difficult to get anything out of that game. Washington in Washington, I believe it is, or is it? No, it's a home, isn't it?
It's a home. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, again, you would expect Washington to maybe, want revenge after last night. Yeah, you've got some tough teams. The Bengals, that offense is going to be difficult to be able to stop. So it's going to be difficult for them. I would be very surprised if they got in. And yeah, I think it's a bit of a wasted season for the Cowboys, to be honest.
Bit of a go into the off season, reevaluate, reassess, and see where to go from there. The rest of the slate of the weekend looked like this with the Giants. With the Giants have been absolute tie fire. Losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home 30-7. Obviously, there was the big shot Baker Mayfield doing Tommy DeVito's money Italian sign thing. Came out in an interview and said it was actually a show of respect, not a diss, that they met last year and they really enjoyed each other. So take from that what you will, I suppose. The Denver Broncos traveled to their divisional rivals, the Las Vegas Raiders, winning 29-19. And we saw the Green Bay Packers hosting San Francisco 49ers, beating them 38-10. A big dominant win for your team there, Adam. Next game we will look at and talk about is the Tennessee Titans going to their divisional rival in the AFC South, Houston Texans, winning 32-27. I mean, a game that I just don't know what to do with this Texans team, I think that's my thing. Is I say a game that you'd expect Houston to win, but I just don't know what to expect with this Houston team. I mean, they rushed for 40 yards. They were terrible in doing that. I mean, it was 20-17 at half time. It's a close game. This was exciting from start to finish. And it seems like Tennessee some weeks really have it figured out, and then some weeks just don't look like they know what they're doing at all. And yeah, how did you see about this game?
Yeah, I kind of agree on both points, really. I think that the Titans are a team that defensively they've been all right. If you look at the stats of everything, they look like a good, solid defensive team against the run and the pass. They really don't look too bad, but they just haven't been able to put the points up. And yet they went up against this Texans defense who, I mean, they got to Will Levis 8 times in this game. They did really well, and yet still managed to just, give away so many points and really, really struggled. Will Levis was okay. He wasn't great. He had 278 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 1 interception, which he always seems to do. That just seems to be a given with Will Levis every game. But it's just surprising that they managed to put up so many points against this team who, it's difficult. A lot of people come out with the Texans and say, oh, they've got a lot of injuries and they've had people out. Apart from Stephon Diggs, I don't think there's many people out anymore. And it kind of just feels a little bit like this isn't the team that we thought they were going to be. Like, I think we all thought that, they got to the playoffs last year. They looked good. But, it's CJ Stroud's first year. He needs a bit of time to develop and get better. The whole team needs to get a bit better on the defense. They brought in these players. It felt like they brought in the right guys. They had made the run game better by bringing in Joe Mixon. And it just kind of hasn't happened. And it sort of feels like, if anything, that as a team, they might have regressed a little bit. And it's just the only reason that they're doing so well, as in like leading this division, is because the rest of the teams in the division are so poor. And something that Andrew always comes out and says whenever we do the betting show, whenever it's a divisional matchup, that the records tend to go out the window a little bit. And I think you kind of see that here. The Titans did play a lot harder than what maybe we've seen most of this season. They were a little bit better than what we've seen, and I think that's just what it is. But a big thing was that they stopped the run. They managed to really bottle up Joe Mixon in this game, and they stopped the run, and that was huge. And I think that the Texans under DeMeco Ryans, they want to run the ball. That seems to be what they want to do first of all. And if you can stop that, okay, they can still score points on you, as they scored 27. But this defense just let so many points go for some reason.
I want to explore what you and sort of connect the dots together with what you were saying there. Is CJ Stroud development, and you said also Andrew said Andrew says this a lot as well, that last year CJ Stroud was playing at a really high level and really good. And again, the only film of him was in college, and first season played really well. Played fantastically, was breaking records and was really, really good player. And then this year it's just sort of not come together again. And do you think that's a little bit of a thing of they haven't really got the right guy as offensive coordinator or part of the offensive staff to sort of develop? Because like I just referred to, and Andrew and yourself believe this. I'm a little bit halfway house on it, but DeMeco Ryans is a defensive minded guy. This guy's still a young rookie quarterback, not a yucky. That's putting the two words together. But if he had a head coach that maybe was sort of pushed him on to the next step and develop him, but was more of an offensive minded person, that we wouldn't have seen this season. It's felt quite flat, I feel like, with CJ Stroud. Even though there's been injuries, I still think, Tank Dell, where's he been this year? Fantastic last year, and he's had plenty of opportunities. Stephon Diggs, got halfway through the season before he got injured, and he was doing okay. He wasn't doing, fantastic. Nico Collins is very good, and he's also had a way better run game to lean on. So then why isn't the results happening, with his arm?
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, maybe there is a little bit in it. I mean, with Bobby Slowick, that maybe there is a thought process of maybe he's not necessarily, like, he can get a certain amount out of them, but maybe he's not the developer. Maybe there is a little bit in that. I just think that it feels to me that obviously DeMeco Ryans has come from the 49ers and the Shanahan sort of tree. And it feels like when you get guys from that, there is an element of the run game is incredibly important, and almost to a certain extent more important than the pass game. That's how it feels to me. With the 49ers, it's very much about Christian McCaffrey. I think that you're seeing now with the Packers, with Matt LaFleur, that when Rodgers was there, maybe there wasn't so much of a run game because you're trying to control your quarterback. Whereas for now that you've got your young quarterback that you're happy with and the guy that you've drafted, it does feel very much like the run game has become an important thing because Josh Jacobs has come in and they want to make sure that the run game is more important. So I think there is an element of that from the Shanahan 49ers tree, that the run game is very important. I think it doesn't get talked about very much. It's a little bit like McVay as well. I think the run game is incredibly important and they don't think about it. And that kind of makes me feel a little bit like, well, they've brought in Joe Mixon. So they've done this for a reason. They brought in a veteran running back who still has plenty of juice left in him, and has looked good really all season. Has done well. And I think the idea is we want to run the ball a lot, which then when you do that, it kind of takes your quarterback out of rhythm a little bit. And he's not passing as much. He's not doing as much of that. I mean, a prime example of that is Kirk Cousins at the Falcons. Whenever they lean on Bijan Robinson and they want Cousins to only throw the ball a certain amount of times, it seems to be a struggle. But when he's constantly passing every attempt is a pass, it's like he gets into a rhythm. And I do think that with a lot of these quarterbacks, that's what they need. They need to be in rhythm in order to be as good as they are. Now, if you've got the likes of Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball, well, then you've got something, or Josh Allen as well. He's another one. It's a little bit different because they're just that good. CJ Stroud is clearly a good quarterback, but he is still a young quarterback and he's still developing. And I think you see it a little bit with Jordan Love as well. I think it's kind of the same thing. It's if you don't get into that routine and that rhythm, it becomes difficult. And you know, I do agree with you when it comes to, you know, Tank Dell has disappeared this season. He hasn't been anything like what he was last year. And maybe some of that can be put down to, you know, off season, the shooting that he was involved in and stuff like the injury he had. And that there have been a few injuries. But to me, aside from Stephon Diggs, they're pretty reasonably fit now, considering it's week 12. I mean, all teams have got some injuries. So I'd say they're not too bad. And yeah, it's difficult. It feels difficult to criticize an OC when he's put up 27 points in a game. But you got to bear in mind, one of them was a pick six, and it just feels like, I don't know. It just feels like it's something not quite right. It just feels like it hasn't quite developed how we all thought it was going to.
Just a quick word on the Titans before we head out, just because, you know, let's not shy away from the winners of this contest. But this is the highest points scored they've had this season, only over their win against Miami. They got 31 to 12, and this first time they've got 32 in the highest amount. I mean, it's been a struggle to get points all year. They've been really, really pretty poor on offense. Do you think that it is just a bit of a let's just take our time with this? And, you know, Pollard has done fairly decent. Their only real weapon is Calvin Ridley. I know Chikakonkru people really love. I really like Chikakonkru, but is it more of a just we'll get there with this sort of thing rather than because it was all very run centric in the first place with Derrick Henry, and then that's all got, you know, Vrabel's gone and it's a new guy in town. And is they're not as bad a team as maybe people think, is what I'm trying to say. Maybe
I think they're a team that's desperately, they need a quarterback that's consistent, and they just don't have it. So he's had Levis has had a really good game. Well, not really good, but he's had a pretty good game in this one. And, you know, he's had 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. It's not awful, but it's not fantastic. And yes, you know, you've got players on this team that can do stuff. You know, I mean, Tony Pollard is a good running back. Okay, his last year at the Cowboys, he wasn't fantastic, but before that, he had shown that he was pretty good, and he was coming back from an injury as well. So he wasn't amazing for them, but he's looked pretty good for the Titans. Calvin Ridley, ever since DeAndre Hopkins has gone and he's kind of become the number one guy, he has had some games where he's put up some decent scores, like this one where he's had 93 yards. You know, so it's not been awful for him. Okonkwo, yeah, really like him as a tight end. I think he needs to get involved a lot more though than what he normally does. Westbrook Akine, you know, is someone who's a very, very solid sort of wide receiver 3 type guy who's always done well for them. Once you get past that, there's not a lot else. That's the problem. So there's a lack of depth, I would say, or of real top talent in the receiving game. The rushing game, okay. The quarterback is not consistent enough, and really they need to go and get a new one. And the defense has been good. You know, it has been good this season. It's just that they haven't been putting points up. And so it's almost like, I wouldn't say that they've got it all right and that they'll be okay, and like next year it'll be so much better, because I just don't believe that Will Levis is going to move on. That's the thing. I don't think he's going to suddenly become amazing, but I think they've got the bones there of a decent, but they've got potential if they make the right moves. And I mean, they're 3-8 at the moment. I don't quite know exactly where that puts them. They've got the Raiders, Jags, and Patriots who will be drafting before them, and the Giants, possibly the Panthers will as well. So they're going to be about pick 6 or 7. They can get a good quarterback there. So I think that might be the move that they have to make. But there is potential, and I think that Brian Callahan is a good guy to have as your head coach. And this was always going to be a big adjustment, wasn't it? Given the fact that they had got rid of Mike Vrabel, got rid of Derrick Henry. You've got to go in a completely different way. And I think it's just going to take time.
Yeah, you need that adjusting period for sure.
Yeah.
Let's close out the week of the games, and we had the Seattle Seahawks beating the Arizona Cardinals 16-6. The late game last night, but we sort of mentioned earlier, the Philadelphia Eagles traveled to the LA Rams. It was a star-studded affair. That's all they kept going on about in the lead up and on the commentaries about how many famous people were there. But they won 37-20, and to close out, talking of the games, we are moving to the Vikings beating their NFC North division rivals 30-27 in overtime. It just feels like the Bears, they always fall on the wrong side of all of these results. But they ran you guys close, and then they ran the Vikings close as well. Two really, really fun divisional games that we've had in the last few weeks within this division. I'll start with Minnesota winning, 452 offensive yards in total in the end. A very equal game, really, in terms of the box score. Going to the half at 10-14. It's again, we sort of said about the shine coming off of the Commanders. Is the shine sort of coming off of the Vikings as well? I mean, for once, Justin Jefferson didn't have a big game, which I sort of I hate because I'm in fantasy football, but I sort of love that as well because I think Addison's been injured this year, and he's played well, but I don't think I think everyone still feels a little bit like this is like Justin Jefferson led, and it was really great to see Addison 162 touchdown. I mean, career day for him. 7 receptions by Hawkinson, 114 yards. Aaron Jones over 100 yards well in the touchdown. I mean, they're an exciting team to watch, but they're doing what Minnesota does quite a lot, which is run very close games a bit at the minute, as well as Chicago, I suppose. But
yeah, I think in this game specifically, it was a funny one. It kind of felt like they were comfortably ahead going into the final quarter, and they looked like they were going to be okay and that it wasn't going to be much of a problem for them. And then all of a sudden, it kind of, to me, it felt very much like Caleb Williams just suddenly got on a run, and it all kind of clicked over that certain period of time. DJ Moore was getting a lot more of the ball. He had 106 yards. Keenan Allen had 9 targets. He looked really good as well. And it just felt like so all of a sudden with the Bears, it just suddenly went, okay, this is how to do it. And it just suddenly worked.
Well, they put it in Caleb's hands, didn't they? I mean,
yeah, exactly. It's almost like they got
away from the rush game and then went, right, you need to get us down.
Yeah, they got into a position where they couldn't do anything else, and it suddenly worked, and it was okay.
And it goes back to what we were just saying about the rhythm.
Yeah.
There are some of these quarterbacks that will work well with this. That will work well with this when they're doing the rhythm and getting into their groove with it. For sure.
Yeah, and it was very much like that. And all of a sudden, they had 2 touchdowns in the space of like 5 minutes, and they managed to bring it level. And then it was a funny one because I don't really feel like the Vikings defense did anything that wrong in this particular game during that period of time. It's like, they had them to 10 points going into the fourth quarter, and it just kind of like all of a sudden it just sort of slipped away, and they didn't really do anything too badly. It's just that Williams just got on a run and it was working well. And what was really, really weird was that it went to overtime, and the Bears' drive was atrocious. Like, they did it just nothing in overtime on that first sort of like that first period of possession that they had. And of course, by then, the Vikings just went down, got a field goal, and that was the end of it. So it was surprising that it was almost like it all just disappeared as quickly as it all turned up. And I think that's a real problem for the Bears that they're going to have, because they've got to somehow bottle it so that it's more consistent. And I think there is going to be an element of trust in Caleb a little bit more, but I think the issue is that you're probably not going to get that until next year, when I would expect a new head coach to come in with their own OC and it all changing and stuff like that. With the Vikings, I do kind of agree with you. They're not. I think at the beginning of the season, we were all a little bit like, oh, wow, okay, they could really do something here. The defense is still good. It's not a bad defense. It's still a good defense, but it does struggle when it comes to being passed against, especially over the top. It does really struggle with that. But yeah, they offensively, it's funny, Darnold 330 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's not bad, but it just kind of feels like they're not as as clinical as what they were at the beginning of the season. And I think that's going to be the problem for them. And they're going to come up against, I think, the Lions or the Eagles at some point, and that'll be the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some close scores in all of the Vikings and the Bears in the Bears schedule. We've had ones that have come quite close. I mean, but really since the bye, I mean, in week 6 for the Vikings, I mean, 29 points against the Lions, lost. 20 points against the Rams, lost. They've on a 4-game winning streak at the minute, but they put up 21 against the Colts, 12 against Jacksonville, and 23 against Tennessee. Okay, they put up 30 against the Bears, but still had to go into over. It's not quite. The first 5 games, 28, 23, 34, 31, 23. In this latter half, we've gone 29, 20, 21, 12, 23, 30. Like, it has really flipped. It's sort of since the bye, they almost didn't need. Then that was obviously fresh off of with the London as well, where they're heralded, so fondly as well here. And obviously, another fumble recovered by them. Their turnover game this year has been incredible, and interceptions and turnovers has been really good. So, yeah, I mean, and then you look on the flip side, and it's like a mirror image, the Bears schedule of the wins, and the Bears haven't won a game now since week 6. That was before their bye. Again in London as well. So losing to Commanders, Cardinals, Patriots, Packers, Vikings. Then you look at the rest of their schedule. Geez, they're now away 3 games in a row. Lions, 49ers, Vikings again. Then they host the Lions again. They go back home in week 16, host the Lions, host the Seahawks, then play your Packers. I mean, it's if they were going to try and find some form in the end stages, I can't see where they would find it, to be honest with you at this point.
No, it's very tough. I don't expect them to be able to get there. It's 7-5. The Commanders are. But the Bears, they've got the same record as the Cowboys that we were talking about, so 4-7. It's a big swing.
Very different situations, though, isn't it? It does feel like incredibly different situations.
Yeah, it just feels like it's very different, but it's going to be a very big swing for them to be able to come back now, and I think it's given that strength of schedule that they've got. I mean that's some. You've got the Lions twice. And
weirdly enough, the one I look at and I go, I could see a win there is maybe 2 wins. Is the 49ers and the Seahawks. That's the only 2 games where I go, and maybe the Packers game just because of the division.
Possibly, yeah. I mean,
then I think you might be fighting for the playoffs spot at that point. So that could
the
be
49ers and the Seahawks, are they at home or away?
They're at the 49ers and they're hosting the Seahawks.
Right, okay. So, I mean, yeah, it's going to be difficult. I think it's going to be beyond them personally. I just don't, the consistency is not there. I think offensively they do look better than what they have done it. So last week against the Packers, I thought they looked more dangerous. And this week again, but they're getting DJ Moore involved a lot more. Keenan Allen was kind of getting involved a lot as well. But I think that they're trying to spread the ball about a bit more, and I think that is helping them on the offense. They're just not consistent enough at the moment, and they need to. There's no point them making it, because they're going to end up playing against the team and getting knocked out in one, and that's it. And this way they can get themselves another really good player. And the defense has been all right most of the season, and they've got lots of potential. But I think they do have to understand that they do have a rookie quarterback, and that it's going to take time.
There's certainly more to come from this team. That is for certain. Let's turn our attention to the Monday night football game that's happening this evening between the Baltimore Ravens going to the LA Chargers. Ravens at 7-4 with the Chargers at 7-3. Obviously a battle of the brothers, Jim and John Harbaugh. I can never remember which one's which. John is in Baltimore and Jim is in LA. And I was literally about to say, you know what it was? I was about to say Michigan. I was about to go in Michigan, and I was like, no, that's not right either. I mean, this is it's a sort of strange clash in a way, because you've got an offense that is really rolling with the Ravens, and an offense on the Chargers that isn't exactly rolling, but has found nice form in the last few weeks. And then you're coming up against two defenses that are very good. However, you've got one defense that cannot defend the pass, another defense who's fairly decent against the pass, but both teams are really good against the run. I mean, this is quite a matchup, and I've always thought, I think I love the chemistry between the Harbaugh brothers as well. I think that's really, really good fun. I think it does add for a more of a fun element to all of this. But really, this is like a desperate game for both of these teams, with playoff implications.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost a stay. It's almost a stay up and watch kind of game.
Really?
Actually, which is like quite shocking from me.
You know what? I don't say this very often, and I'm not going to, but you're very correct. You are. Yeah. It is one of the games that Lamar, Justin Herbert, thumpers on the defense in Madueke, Bosa, and Khalil Mack. You've got decent receivers on, but Lam McConkey and Zay Flowers, both young guys, and you got decent run games on both sides. Like it's a real clash of styles, and yet also similar styles at the same time.
Yeah, it is a difficult one. It's very difficult to predict this one, and it's funny because the over/under set at 51, and I'm not really seeing that. I think that's got under written all over it. I have to say, it feels like that is very, very high, and I think that what is kind of exciting about this game is that the Chargers have been able to put points up against teams. That's the one thing that's kind of really exciting in this one. And so I think that given that you're going up against this Ravens defense who cannot defend the pass at all, and it will come back and bite them. They're not winning this Super Bowl if they continue down this route. It's just not going to happen. I think that the Chargers have the potential to really get their offense going here and be able to do something. The only thing that obviously is going to be really, really difficult for the Chargers is that they do rely heavily on the run game, and the Ravens are the best defense against the run. So it's going to be incredibly tough to be able to do anything because of that. But there is potential that they could, because they've got Herbert, and Herbert has the ability to just pass the ball for most of the game and do really, really well. In the same way, you've got this Chargers defense that it's just been really good all season, he's not the best, but he's one of probably top 10 when it comes to the pass and the.
They're knocking about the top 3 to 5 in rushing defense. I'm sure.
Yes, yeah, they're a little bit lower on the pass, but they're pretty good against the run. And so
I'll get the stats up for that.
So that kind of like, obviously that doesn't stop Derrick Henry completely because you're dealing with Derrick Henry, but it has the potential to really slow that down, which then means you're reliant on basically Lamar passing his way through. And the thing is that Lamar, in the same way as Justin Herbert, has the potential to do that and can go and do that. And so it's exciting because of that. So it is a very interesting matchup that is kind of a playoff game. You know,
it feels like it.
It is, and it's got that potential to be something special in a sort of like in LA where, you know, Ravens fans will travel.
Yeah.
LA Chargers maybe don't have a massive fan base, so you could have a 50-50 split in the stadium as well, and so it just has.
Well, no celebrities are going because they were all there last night.
Went last night.
Yeah, exactly.
So it has the potential to be something a bit different and a bit special, and it's very difficult to guess which way this one's going to go.
When you look at, I mean, the Chargers are the number one for points against this year. They've had 145 points scored on them. They're number one. Baltimore are 20th. And then in terms of, I mean, passing yards, Baltimore are the worst team in the NFL. And the LA Chargers are fourth. Rushing yards. Okay, Ravens are the second best, and Chargers are the seventh best. 852 to Ravens, 1,105 to the Chargers. However, the Chargers only allowed 12 touchdowns. The Ravens have allowed 27. And the Ravens have allowed 7 rushing touchdowns. The Chargers have allowed 3. So, you know, you talk about Derrick Henry. I mean, he's come up against a team that may well make him look very un-Derrick Henry. And if you look at their last, like, I've got their schedule up here in the stats from their schedule, and it's such a tale of two stories after the bye week. So, like, I mean, they've rushed under 100 yards 4 times this season. They've only won one of them games, and that was against the Browns. They rushed for 96 yards in that game, and they won that. The other 3, which was the Steelers, the Chiefs, and the Cardinals, they lost. So obviously the rush game. But when you look at it, the first half of the season, Herbert only threw for 169 yards was the most he threw in the first 4 weeks. And then since the bye week, they've lost 1 game in 6 weeks. And he's thrown for over 150 yards every single game. So it almost was like, we're going to run the ball down. And then they had 2 games where they couldn't against the Steelers and the Chiefs, and they went, okay, yeah, we also need to use Herbert as well. We can't just go full blast. This is what we do. You know, they can't do the Michigan way. You know, we're gonna have to diversify it up. And Herbert looks really comfortable in this it's the most comfortable he's looked in any offense, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he's looked great this season, and the reason is because he's got a run game. It's not completely all on his shoulders, and so they have the potential to use him all the time, but they're not, and that's why it's working. It's not like, you know, the criticism that's always been leveled at Herbert is that he can't get over the line at the end of it. The thing is that he always, like, the amount of times that he managed to get touchdowns for that team, and the criticism was he couldn't get over the line, but the reason he couldn't get over the line was because he couldn't score every single play. I mean, what quarterback is scoring every single drive? It just doesn't happen, and that was the problem. Now, because the defense is as good as it is, because the run game is getting involved as well, they don't need him to score on every single possession. So it's just all the pressure has kind of lifted off of him. And so it just means that he's going out there and doing what he can do. And he looks really good doing it. It's kind of similar for Lamar, isn't it? It's like just the other way around. It was always like he couldn't pass a lot of the time, but the run game would sort of like save him a lot. But you look at how Lamar's been with his passing, and he's been really good this year. He was really good last year with it. But it's because they're complementing each other, and that's what does it. The only weakness in this matchup is the Ravens' pass defense. Yeah, that's the only weakness in the matchup.
And I think if they were just maybe one or two more X factor guys on the Chargers, I think that would matter. I think that their youth and
they're missing a real stud wide receiver, aren't they?
Yeah, at the moment, and if they had that, maybe it'd be a bit more of a hot contest, I suppose. Score prediction.
I think it's going to be less than 51. I reckon that the Ravens will probably nick it just purely. I think they'll outscore them. And I'm going to go 27-20.
Oh, I was going to go 26-23. I was going to go real close, I think. So, yeah, I think under 51. I mean, we'll probably eat our hats by the end of the night. Adam, thank you for joining me. Thank you guys for watching and subscribing and everything on YouTube and on our social media channels. As we advised, probably stay up for this one. It'll probably be a really good game. Or do what me and Adam are going to do and watch the highlights as soon as we wake up tomorrow morning. Either or, it's going to be a great game. Make sure you check out the rest of the shows we have in the week. We've got the Tuesday show as well as the college and betting show coming to you this week. Again, thank you for your support and liking our stuff on YouTube and all social media platforms. We'll see you again very soon. Have a great rest of your week.